Jared here, co-host of the Away from the Rink podcast. Before you dive into today's episode, I just want to lay a few quick things on the table. We believe these conversations are important, but they can include strong themes and language that might be triggering for some listeners. We're also not medical professionals, therapists, or doctors, and any resources mentioned in the episode can be found in the episode notes. The opinions shared by our guests are those of their own and don't necessarily reflect the views of this podcast. If you or someone you know is struggling, please check the resources in the show notes or feel free to reach out to us at afterpodcastofficial@gmail.com and we'll do our best to help point you in the right direction. Please take care while listening, and thanks so much for being here. Now let's get to it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the After Podcast. I'm the co-host, DJ McGrath, and I got my other co-host, Jared Jepson. Jared, how are you doing today, man?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Good. You might as well get right to her. Jared and Player Athletics, where were you guys there last week while I was holding the fort down and dealing with this minus 50, freezing cold weather? Yes.
I was down in Florida, buddy. It was nice to be in the sunshine, get away from this for a little bit. Can't complain. We were down there for a golf show, but now we're back here podding it up. So let's pod it up.
Now you're back podding up, and might as well tell everybody you got to go to your, fourth NBA game?
Fourth. There we go. Yeah, we went to an NBA game. I don't know nothing about basketball, so that was nice. And I had a buddy who does know stuff about basketball, or maybe after this, he doesn't know anything about basketball. But he was telling me all the players because I don't know nothing and told me to go to this game because Orlando should absolutely crush Charlotte. And I think they lost by the worst loss they've ever had in history, like 45 points or something. It was absolutely brutal. But
what was this? What did the score end up being?
I don't. Orlando didn't get to 100. I don't even know. I think at the end we were placing bets whether or not they'd get to 80. it was pretty bad. It was not good.
No, I mean, when you go down to Orlando, I personally haven't been there, but it seems like when you get out there, it's like, why do we live in a province like Saskatchewan when it's minus 50? And because when you guys left at that perfect time.
Yeah.
It was the last 3 to 4 days where it was cold, but
it's like 80 degrees.
Yeah, and you guys, yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Surviving this weather. Obviously, it's supposed to be the pluses, I think, for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So about time. I think this winter has taken its toll on most of us, but we always say it's worth it. When it gets to summertime, we get the beautiful weather in good old Saskatchewan, and I'm looking forward to it. I know you guys are too, but most importantly, I am looking forward to this episode.
This pod, baby.
So today's episode is a special one. Our guest is someone who has lived many lives inside the game of hockey, from being a late bloomer to winning championships to walking away, losing himself, and finding his way back. Gio is a former hockey player who worked his way from midget AAA in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, to the Saskatchewan Junior A Hockey League with my hometown Kindersley Klippers, and earning a Division I scholarship at Ferris State University, and later appearing in games in the East Coast Hockey League as well as the CHL. This isn't a highlight reel conversation. It's about pressures, identity, addiction, recovery, and what happens when the game you love becomes both your sanctuary and your escape. Gio is someone who's done the work, continues to do the work, and shows up honestly, not just for himself, but for others. So before we get into the hockey, the struggles, and the lesson, G, how are you really doing today, man?
Hey, first off, thanks for having me on, gentlemen. Grateful to be here. It's kind of been a challenging day. Not gonna lie, I'm single dadding it, so to speak. My partner is on an annual trip with her best friend in Mexico, so I'm holding down the fort on the home front, and thankfully got some good family support and stuff to help with our 4-year-old. But yeah, it's been trying. Just taking care of all those household duties, trying to work, trying to do recovery stuff and just other commitments. But you know what? I'm grateful for it today.
No, that's awesome, G. And I'm personally don't have any kids in my life. So how is it being a single father? I know you got a 4-year-old beautiful girl. Gianna is her name. How is that life? I know it takes kind of two to tamper down the house or whatever, but how is it being by yourself right now while your other half is in Mexico?
It's like I said, some challenges for sure, but I catch myself when I'm getting maybe impatient with her or a little bit short, just to take a step back and recognize how lucky I am to be in both my kids' lives, but particularly, help raise my 4-year-old and just be present for her, man. At the end of the day, be the father she deserves today. And it's these last few days since her mom's been gone, it's just been really cool to connect on kind of a deeper level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. And we're going to get into your story. I know you having your daughter and your family back is quite the success in your life. So we're definitely going to hear it. But how we start this episode, G, let's talk about your childhood. I knew you grew up in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. You're a hell of a hockey player growing up, man. Now, when you were young, was hockey your life? When you had a hockey stick in your hands, did you know that you wanted to be a hockey player? And how was your childhood for you?
Yeah, it's always an interesting question when people ask me that. I mean, it was really good. It wouldn't when you look back on it not be a factor of why I struggled later in life and had these hard lessons, because loving parents. Yes, hockey was from the time I could walk, man. I was backyard rink, dad flooding the ice from as soon as it started freezing, and that was like some of my earliest childhood memories were backyard rink every night, right, until I was called in, and it was like a sanctuary. That being said, I don't think I ever, even when I got good later in life with hockey, I don't think I ever wanted to make the NHL necessarily. It wasn't a dream of mine to hoist the Stanley Cup like a lot of Canadian kids potentially, but it was still, to answer your question, definitely my life revolved around it, right? Again, from the time I could walk, and then got into minor hockey, and life just centered around it, and it was what I did. It was what gave me joy, and that even from a young age, just that ability to compete, right? Remember enjoying that from even the real early years.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk real here. How are your mom and dad back in the day? Because obviously in today's hockey, it's a lot of pressures on these young kids. 13 years old, even younger. There's a lot of pressurized hockey with all these academies, with the regular leagues and everything. How is your parents? Because I know could be some parents that are really hard on their kids at a young age. Maybe their dad or mother played some pretty competitive hockey or being an athlete or whatever, and they try to take it or put it on their kid, I should say. How was your mom and dad to you as a kid growing up and playing hockey?
Yeah, so for the most part, really loving parents, did the best they could. That being said, my dad was really hard on me when it came to hockey life as well. But I just remember, probably from up until I was maybe 10, 11 years old, there was pressure there to perform. And I knew if I maybe didn't play as well as he wanted me to, I was going to hear about that, right? And there was some brutal car rides and just, conversations back at the house. But I always like to share this. Like, I was able to speak up early on. I was able to tell him around that 10, 11 years old, when I started realizing like it wasn't enjoyable to me to go do something I love. And if I didn't play well enough for his standards, that I'd have to hear about that, right? So I spoke up. One of the few times I was able to speak up in my youth. And that was an important conversation because he respected it. Like, he responded to it in a sense of moving forward from that day on, regardless how I played after any hockey game, even up into the pro ranks, shook my hand, great game, son, or great game, Gio, and that, I didn't really realize that till much later in life, that early conversation was impactful for me. But, to answer your question, my parents loved me, but there was definitely an expectation, especially around hockey, to play or to get to a certain level, I think.
I feel like that's big as a kid. Like you don't hear a lot about that. Like, it's usually the other way. Like, kids will get the criticism and shut down. So that's huge that you were able to do that.
Ability to speak up too, right?
Yeah, and I don't know where it came from. Like, it's not like I was processing that in real time of like, oh, I need to speak up here, right? I think it just kind of came out, and I struggled with it later on when coaches, especially coaches, held me to a certain standard and I didn't meet it or didn't agree with maybe where they wanted me to be, I would kind of act out rebelliously, right? Or, just that, turning against authority, so to speak. That was kind of how I handled it in the later years. But yeah, I'm glad I was able to speak up at that young age.
So you played all your minor hockey in Prince Albert, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, right up until junior, man. So yeah, and I've shared this with you before. I was a late bloomer, right? Like I barely made Pee Wee and Bantam Double A teams. That's the truth. And then walked on to the PA Mintos Triple A team as an underage. Just kind of went to camp. And it's kind of like today where certain guys are pegged. You know what I mean? Especially younger kids that are gonna play at the top level. And I was not one of those guys. That's the truth, right? And I was able to make that team. And that's kind of when, at least personally, I started noticing, I guess, that maybe I did have potential to go somewhere with it. And played with more confidence, obviously, right? Making that team at that age. And that's pretty good hockey. You played it, right? And that's kind of, I say I was a late bloomer because it wasn't until, that 15, 16-year-old year that, I started being one of the better players on the ice.
Yeah, and I think, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but that pressures that you probably didn't have that much pressures being that late bloomer, right? Because I know there's a lot of kids out there. I know in my past, there was a lot of pressures because you're the top end kid on your hockey team, having to make that next level and making a good impression. Now for you, G, you were a late bloomer. So was it kind of less pressure on you? It's kind of go out and play Geo's hockey and have some fun with it, and all of a sudden you're starting to look good. You're starting to play good. You're starting to get noticed. Like you said, you're a walk-on for the midget AAA team, the Prince Albert Mintos. How was that? Talk to us a little bit how you made that PA Mintos team. How were your parents when you told them that you made the team, and how was that big transition for you knowing that you were that late bloomer?
Yeah, so it was honestly, looking back, man, like an up and down thing with that excitement of making it, because I had my best friend was also an underager, best friend since early childhood. And he was one of the peg guys, so I was getting to play another season with my best friend, and just we had a good team. I liked the coach. I was on first unit power play, I mean, off the hop, and I was just like, wow, this is awesome, right? But with that, you just touched on it, those pressures, I'd never felt those before. And now all of a sudden, I'm expected to perform. There was dialogue around within the parent circle. You mentioned my parents, and there was me overhearing other parents talking about who's this Flamminio kid making the team instead of maybe one of their son's friends who was older, that kind of stuff going on. And I remember hearing those combos, and it affected me, man. Like, and then getting listed, Kootenay Ice listed me right off the hop in the WHL. We ended up going to the Calgary Max tournament at Christmas, and I played some of my worst hockey, right? I don't know why. Like I don't remember feeling a lot of pressure in the moment, but I think that it impacted me in the sense that it was like a 2-month thing. They listed me, went to that tournament, and they dropped me right after. And then now how do I deal with that, right? Because I had all this confidence just 2 short months prior, and now I'm dropped by a WHL team and not confident on the ice. So yeah, you're right. It was the first, it was the first season I had to deal with that kind of stuff.
That's a lot of pressure real quick, too.
Yeah.
Going from just having fun to all of a sudden having all these expectations on you. But yeah, I mean, what was it like? I know you had the expectations of your parents and the conversations that you're hearing, but you hear, and especially in your story, DJ, everything with rookie parties and all of that stuff. And what was it like walking onto a team full of kids that were supposed to go somewhere, and you being essentially nobody at this time and feeling it from your teammates? Like, you're hearing the parents talk, but what was it like with your new teammates?
Good question. It was a mixture for sure. There was, some awesome leaders on that team, supportive guys, and again, I was placed into a pretty big role early with, special teams and just, lots of ice time. But with that being said, I remember sometimes feeling like I didn't fit in. And yeah, the parties had started even at that point, right? The house parties. And, I remember, trying to drink to fit in, that kind of stuff started. That was probably the first year I was getting into, alcohol at parties and stuff. And yeah, it was a sense of just doing it to fit in, right? It wasn't like I was enjoying how it made me feel at that age. So I think there was a mixture of supportiveness, but also like, who is this young kid,
Right.
I could definitely relate to when you said that you had to drink to kind of fit in. And I could go back to my childhood days and my rookie party. That was kind of the first time when I was 15 years old getting rookie partied. My treatment was getting butt naked in front of the whole party and taping warm out of the microwave Colt 45 beers and had to chug them in front of the whole party, and then find the waters, which those damn vets, it was all vodka, all the same color. So that was kind of like me. And I liked how you said that, G. How was your rookie party? Because I know you and I both know back in the day, rookie parties were, I know they still have them now, but I think it's a lot more tamed. But how was it for you? Did you kind of get something along those lines like I did, or was it a little more tame?
So yeah, in midget it was more tame. I got to college. I remember that one specifically. I can share it with you if you want.
Absolutely.
It was pretty, not traumatic's probably too strong of a word, but I mean it was similar to what you said. Like they threw us threw all the rookies in jock straps into a basement, essentially like a cellar, with a huge garbage bag full of beer, and you're not coming up till it's gone, essentially, right? And there was five or six rookies maybe on that collegiate team. And yeah, and then the aftermath was come up, have to perform a skit, right? Like we would coordinate these skits and come up, and it was it was funny at the time, but like looking back, it was pretty questionable in all honesty. And I mean I don't know if there was mental repercussions from it for me, but potentially for some of my teammates, right? Because again, at that point, I was 19 and had gone through the SJHL and loved the partying, right? So it was I almost thrived in that setting, so to speak. But I just I don't necessarily think that's going on today, right?
Yeah, and you always hear those little bit of horror stories, but I know it's gotten a lot tamer because it's coming out. There's more people coming out and talking about this. I know coaches are kind of like taming it down, make sure boys, because I'm a big believer. It's always okay to go out and have a good time with your team because I think that's important. That's how the boys
Sure.
gel and everything. But you always have to have those leaders who kind of, don't do this, don't do that. Where back in the day, it was kind of, here you go, buddy. Just because I got it when I was a rookie, this rookie's going to get it.
For sure. And there was no there was no guidance on
Yeah.
that. No one was telling us how to compose ourselves in those situations, right? And I'd like to think, with my girls, even as they get older and compete in athletics, that I can, with that firsthand experience, but also just that guidance of, hey, like watch out for this, be careful with this, you can talk to me about what you need to, that kind of stuff. And again, my parents did the best they could, but I don't recall those types of conversations, right?
Yeah. And that makes tons of sense. And I could relate with that big time. So, G, back up a little bit. You're playing midget AAA, Prince Albert Mintos. You are a walk on. Now you're doing special teams. You're doing power play, penalty kill. And now you have a name. People are looking at Giovanni Flamminio. Talk to us about that. So you're playing. Did you play 2 years out in PA?
I did, yeah.
2 years out in PA, and then you had a lunch with the junior Clipper coach. Walk us through that and how you ended up being on the Kindersley Klippers.
Yeah, so I played that underage season in PA, and then I actually captained the team the following season. And I think I always kind of share this, like I didn't have like a set goal or path I wanted to take. And back then it was, play in the Western League and try to get drafted to the show, or go play junior A and try to get a scholarship, right? It was like those were the two routes. Obviously that's changed today, but I was an undersized D-man, so there wasn't, truth be told, there just wasn't a lot of WHL interest aside from that brief listing with the Kootenay Ice, right? So people told me, hey, go play junior A, get a scholarship. So there was interest from those teams across Western Canada, right? Particularly BC. And I was going to go to Surrey, South Surrey Eagles, verbally committed even. But head coach from Kindersley offered to come up, take my parents and I out for lunch. And yeah, it was just one of those meets where, he just, again, kind of said I'd be playing a ton, assembling a really good team. And I was still in high school, right? So he kind of outlined that too at the lunch, like, hey, these are the classes, can get you set up pretty easily. I remember he went to the bathroom, and I just looked at my parents and I said, I want to go there. I'm gonna play there. Let's sign the papers. And we did. He had it, like, back then it was just like a little card that you just put your signature on.
Contract on a napkin.
Yeah, it literally, man, like it was like a cue card almost, right? And signed it, and that was how my 2 and eventually 3-year stint with the Clippers commenced.
And so at this point in your hockey career, I guess, are you struggling at all, like mentally?
I don't think so. I mean, a lot of confidence, like after that 15-year-old year with those ups and downs, and those pressures, like I captained the team the next year, so the confidence was pretty high. I think I actually won top defenseman in the league that year, so I was feeling good in that sense. And then, like, I excelled in school as well, and just the popularity, and probably like some ego inflation there as well, looking back on it. But I didn't know what that was at 16, right? So I think mentally I was pretty sound, but definitely already like partying, smoking weed daily and drinking on weekends, and just it was just kind of the lifestyle. And I think another difference from today's athletes at that level, like the training just wasn't a huge thing. You know what I mean? Like they took the ice out in PA as soon as the Raiders were done for the year, right? So, sure, we'd come to Saskatoon once in a while, and some guys would go in on some ice, but like, I wasn't prioritizing, I guess, the conditioning or the training to enhance my hockey career, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so many people just relying on skill.
Yeah,
at that
it
time.
was skill and hard work for me. That's what it was. I do remember thinking that, I'm like, you know what? I'm not blessed with an incredible amount of skill, but I know I can, like, outwork guys, and I love to compete, and I've got a little bit of skill. And that was how I thought of myself right through till I was done playing, was, work ethic, bit of skill, and heart.
I mean, that's solid. So that leads you to your scholarship. You got a scholarship after this?
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. I had 2 years in Kindersley. We won the league, won provincials my rookie season, and then had a really good team my next year. And again, just like looking back, had I maybe gone to the BC Junior League and thrived how I did in the SJ, maybe get drafted, like it was that way then, and it still is now. Like, top guys in that league get drafted to the show, but not so much with the SJ, right? The exposure just wasn't there, still isn't there. So I didn't have a lot of schools strongly interested in me, right? Several scouts would come to games, home and away, but Ferris State was by far the most interested. They came and watched 3 or 4 times through the course of that season. Did a fly down mid-season, showed me around campus, met the guys. Chris Kunitz, former NHLer, was there at the time.
Feeling like a big shot.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
And Derek Lalonde, actually, former Detroit Red Wings coach, was the guy who recruited me. He was in the old hangar in Kindersley. It's kind of crazy to look back on, because he was, the second string assistant coach when I went there that season, and obviously worked his way up to the show, right? But he recruited me out of Kindersley, offered me the scholarship. And again, it's not like there was this plethora of options, right? I just, that was available. And again, people just told me, you should go do that. You should go play junior A and try to get a scholarship. And so that's what I did, right? It wasn't like this dream or like intense goal I had. It's just kind of what people suggested. And for the big part of my life surrounding hockey, that's what I did. I just kind of did what others told me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you played 2 years in Kindersley. You guys were great. I was a water boy, stick boy, I believe, when Gio was playing. And you guys were gods. Like at G, I remember you out there, and everyone was number 3, Giovanni Flamminio, and you're such a popular guy. And you played your 17, 18-year-old out there. And most guys nowadays, they kind of wait till after they're 20 to sign a Div 1, Div 2, Div 3 scholarship.
Right.
You signed your 19-year-old year. And correct me if I'm wrong, that was when the Clippers went to the Royal Bank that year.
That's when they lost in the finals.
Yeah, that's when they lost the finals. And do you have any regrets, or shouldn't say regrets, do you have, like, looking back, that you wish you would have stayed for that 19, 20-year-old year even before heading out to Ferris State? Because, man, you're 19 years old. That's pretty young, packing up 2 years in Kindersley and out to Ferris State. Did anything like that cross your mind? Or was there anybody like a big brother to you or anyone that you could go to back in the day saying, is this the right decision for me? Or were you kind of one of those guys, well, this Ferris State wants me, I'm going?
Yeah, honestly, there's probably some regret in the sense of like I was ill-equipped, man, to go down there. Like that's the truth. We just talked about like the training or lack thereof. That was, I got away with that at the midget and junior levels just on work ethic and skill, but Division 1 hockey is a different beast. You're playing with men, right?
Going to school.
Yeah, it's not exactly. The school was like, even as a straight A student in high school, I struggled academically there. The full year I was there, and then 2-a-day practices off the hop, gym, and I showed up there, 170 pounds soaking wet, with minimal training through that off season, and it took a month before I was even like in the required game shape, so to speak, right? And yeah, I struggled, man, and the partying definitely ramped up some, and I was just like, had the fake ID, right? Because 21 down there.
Yeah.
So it was a whole new world, man. It was my first time really, sure, I'd moved away from home to Kindersley, but we're talking 3 hours away from PA, right? This was a different animal, and I was just not equipped. I was not prepared to go into that lifestyle. And to answer your question, like, no, there was no guidance. Like, they offered me the scholarship. Here you go. My parents drove me down there, and here you go. Set you up in the dorm with another player, a teammate, and see you later. And yeah, that was what it looked like.
Did you, when you got down there, I know you talk about like the leap to Div 1 hockey.
Yeah.
Did you have a welcome to the big time moment?
You know what? Not. It was a little bit in. They threw me, at least early on. They threw me into like, again, first unit power play.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
It was crazy. Yeah, and and there was definitely pressure there as well, but not the same pressure as the midget years, because I was super confident and honestly like played better when like a lot of players, when you're with better players, right? They make you better, and I felt that early on. But yeah, it was probably my first Div 1 goal, right, off of a face-off, and just came right back to me, buried it, and I just remember like, that everyone was pumped up, got the puck, and it just felt like I belonged, I guess, more so. So that was a memory I'll never forget, is that first NCAA goal.
That's big. So how many years are you at this school for?
So just the lone year, man. What happened was, I didn't get along with the coach, and
Okay.
kind of maybe underperformed a bit. I don't remember anything specific that just started causing me a lot of, less ice time, but I got healthy scratched a couple games. That was brand new thing, never in my life, right? Just remember sitting in the stands, starting to question what I was doing, and struggled with that authority, right? I just didn't see eye to eye to this guy, and instead of like maybe, again, what I would guide youth today to do, go in and say, hey coach, what can I do to get back in the lineup, right? I didn't have that wherewithal, man. It was just like, shut down, and then sure, maybe go and practice, compete hard to try to earn that spot back, but that's all I knew, and it just didn't serve me. I wasn't really able to get back to the level I started the season at, and then we lost out of playoffs, and there was still, the gym sessions, the conditioning, and it was hardcore. Like, they were hard on us, right? Even once the season was over. Just remember, it was a slower progression, but I remember we were doing a 3-mile run around the community, like on campus, and they were just like coaches out with just like yelling at us through this thing, right? Not to dog it. And I remember making the decision on that run, like I don't envision myself here for another 3 years. So I think I'm going to go home. And that was kind of when I made the decision. They obviously tried to convince me otherwise when I told them. Family, parents were, not necessarily against it, but definitely like, hey, you should reconsider. But at the end, they were all pretty supportive when I said, hey, I'm really unhappy here. Looking back, is there regret there? Probably not for leaving. More so, like I said earlier, for how I prepared or struggled to prepare properly to actually go.
Yeah, and I mean, I think nowadays there's all the mental health performance coaches, there's mental health out there. And back in the day, probably for you, G, there probably wasn't much people you could reach out to and ask or just talk about your feelings and emotions, because you're obviously a hockey player. And then, yeah, you made that hard decision in Ferris State, and now this is your 20-year-old year. Now you're going back to Kindersley to finish off your 20-year-old year. Now, how is the ego? I always wanted to ask you that, because obviously you left at 19 years old. There's probably not many guys in the league that did that like you, but now you're back. How was the mentality of you going back? Were you like, I want to have a great year and try moving on to higher rankings? Or was it kind of more so it's party time? You know, it's kind of one of those things where you get back to a league and you know you're probably the best player on the ice, but was there any ego or any of the drinking kind of skyrocketed for you at that point?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was interesting because Kelowna in the Western League actually protected me like the day I quit, like the day it became public that I, had left Ferris State. The Rockets listed me. But again, like just didn't train through that off season, went out to Kelowna, had a really good camp, but like the 20-year-old rule, right? They're like, hey man, we love you, but we got guys at NHL camp. Like we can't guarantee you a spot past the deadline, but you're welcome to stay until then. And that was really all I needed to hear. Got all my buddies in Kindersley telling me to come back. We're going to go on another run. As you mentioned, they just, made it to RBC final. And it wasn't a hard decision, man. I caught a plane the next day, played in Kindersley the following evening. It was, initially it was exciting, but honestly, bro, like pretty soon into it, it did just become a party. And I don't think it was ego necessarily. I mean, it was obvious I'd excelled or gotten to the next level beyond that. And now it was a regression, right? And so, yeah, I mean, top scoring defenseman, won SJHL top defenseman of the year that year, but it's not like I was, super proud of those accolades necessarily because of the regression. And, we lost out in the first round, and it was just, honestly, it was just a blur. We just partied and had a good time. And, I was showing up high to games and, drinking through the night before games. And it just, again, I couldn't tell you much about that year in all honesty.
When you left college, obviously that's kind of the second time in your life that you like speak up and say, hey, I'm not doing well.
Yeah.
I need to come home type thing. And then you do come home and you're partying and all of this other stuff. Are you talking to anybody at this point? Like is darkness taken over and you're able to have conversations, or is it just full send the whole year?
It was pretty full send, man. I mean, I think looking back, I don't even know if what I was feeling necessarily that was like negative, I'm sure I was shoving some things, but there was just so many distractions, whether it was the girls or the partying or sure the hockey. Like I still don't
The
get
points.
Yeah, for sure. Don't get me wrong. I still loved scoring goals and, like hitting guys. I was a physical player and just like blowing guys up. And so there was still that sanctuary element to like the game itself, but I don't ever remember like there was no guidance. There's not like I didn't know what I was gonna do after, right? Like my junior career is over at the end of this year. What am I gonna do? And that just was never really at the forefront of the mind. It was just like, where's the next party, or what are we doing tomorrow type shit, right?
Yeah. So season ends then. Yep. You're worried, no idea what you're gonna do. What's the next step? What happens?
Yeah, so I it's weird. It's almost embarrassing saying it. Like I had an agent at the time, right? Because he was gonna try to maybe get me a professional deal, but nothing had really come to fruition. So I was gonna go play at State University in Calgary, go to school. Good hockey, good,
ACAC.
Yeah, good hockey program, and I think even moved out there, was enrolled and like skating with the team and stuff. And then this agent, respected guy, friend, he said, man, like you can always go to school, but there's some probably good opportunity in the ECHL can get you a deal. And so signed in Stockton, California. I believe they were the Oilers affiliate at the time. And but I'm going down there as a number, essentially kind of a walk on again. Sure. And I didn't know any of this. I was ignorant to this stuff, right? Like I thought I signed the deal, I'd be playing there all year, right? But
Yeah.
you go down and like I had a really good I always had good training camps because it was like I hadn't like, got into the cycle of the partying or maybe just whatever it was. I just like would
Fresh
come in
legs.
loose
Yeah.
and even though I was like out of shape typically, I was young enough to just like battle through it. And I played again a really physical game, so like I think it threw people off that I was just running around like crushing guys and then able to kind of put the puck in the net as well and make plays. And so I always did well at camps, and I thought I was one of the better D-men there, honestly. But it's really a numbers game at the professional level because it's like a bubble with the NHL guys getting sent down and then the A guys getting sent down to you. So all of a sudden, we've got 10 D-men in Stockton, and the agent calls me. He's like, yeah, they put you on waivers, cleared the next day. No one else league wide picked me up. So that's how I ended up in Oklahoma and in the CHL. They, Saskatchewan coach Doug Sauter, I'll never forget him, man. He and had a bunch of Saskatchewan kids, his team. And, it was just one of those lucky things. They needed D-men. They had a really good forward core, but needed some bodies on the back end. And so, drove from Stockton with a buddy to Oklahoma, cross country, and played the next 2 seasons there. And arguably, like, aside from the title I won in 2010 in Rapid City, those 2 years in Oklahoma were probably my fondest pro seasons, just with, it was pre-Oklahoma City Thunder, so we were the only show in town, professionally, and like, NHL Rink. They would close the upper bowl. We'd get 8,000 to 10,000 a night, man. And I thought I was in the show, right? And a lot of these fans did. These local, they're just like these guys are. This is pro hockey, right? And it was awesome. And it was a tough league. Like there was 4 or 5 fights a game. Your third line and 5, 6 D-men were all tough guys, every team. And I loved it. And I, again, right into the mix, right? First unit power play, tons of ice time. And I didn't have to fight. I just played and tried to produce. And but with that, again, the partying ramps up, right? Because now you're in a big city, nightlife, right? Clubbing, stronger drugs. This type of stuff is what I'm being exposed to now. And I was arguably in the prime of my career, though, right? 20, 22, 23 years old. So I could get away with that. And that was ego inflating because it's like, wait a minute, I can party all night and like party and, win a home game, party all night, do drugs all night, show up to practice or a game the next day, sweat it out, still play good. Why would I be evaluating if this is the right thing to do or not, right?
I'm a pro hockey player.
Yeah. So, and, making decent money at the time. So I don't know, there was just a lot of variables there that, even though the partying had ramped up, and I wasn't questioning where I was at necessarily.
So you're in Oklahoma 2 years. You're having a great time, obviously. Just like you said, it's like a mini NHL out there. The only team, and 8,000 to 10,000 people or 11,000 people a game. And just by the sounds of you, Gio, it seems like you're having a pretty good time, obviously, by doing that. And then you started talking about the drugs and alcohol started ramping up. Can you reflect on any time of any story or anything, how you got into that position of getting into the drugs and alcohol? Because this is important. A lot of people see stuff on the outside. A lot of people, the fans and everything, just see Gio on the ice, but away from the rink and everything. What started this drug and alcohol journey for yourself?
Yeah, I think it wasn't as prevalent that rookie season, that pro rookie season there. It was my second season. Going back, I actually went to A camp in like had earned an American League tryout. That second professional season in Portland, Maine, really cool experience. But again, just a numbers guy, right? Like they even told me, they were nice enough to tell me when I got there, like, hey, would love to see what you can do, but probably go back to, CHL and develop. And, and again, had a really good camp, right? Like running around, crushing guys, got in a fight even. And, it was just, I felt that helped the confidence as well, right? It's like, holy shit, I can compete at the next level, right? But, sent me back. And then it was almost like I just expected to have as good or better of a season, personally in Oklahoma City. And I think the partying caught up to me a little bit that year because it was pretty ramped up early on. and I wasn't putting up the same numbers. A couple teammates even approached me. That was the first time anyone had really, questioned me on the behaviors, right? And it was part of the leadership group on that team. But the thing was, a lot of this leadership group was doing it as well.
Yeah.
You know what I
It's
mean?
tough.
So it was just like it was a really weird situation, but it was never enough for me to be like, oh, I need to slow down, right? Like it was always a short-lived sort of thinking surrounding it. But yeah, that year, I mean, there was a lot of, you meet local people in the community, connects, so to speak, and that was kind of how it got ramped up to where, I started doing it myself occasionally. I got injured that year briefly, so team went on like a 6-7 day road trip, and I'm getting high, in the condo by myself. And again, you didn't think much of it, but it was just, looking back, that was probably the season it started to kind of elevate to, again, where I'm doing it. So I'd never really done that kind of stuff solo before. It was maybe starting to affect my on ice play at times.
You said you got that injury
Yeah.
that year. It's kind of where everything ramped up, and you probably had access to this, and I'm assuming it's pills.
Yeah, so it wasn't until the following season when I played in the ECHL. Like the Oklahoma City injury was just like a knee sprain or something. So I wasn't. I don't even think they gave me medication. In all honesty, but I was out, week to week. But yeah, so the following season, I again, CHL, ECHL, they're all combined now, right? Like it's just they combined. But 20 years ago there was two leagues, and the CHL was just maybe older, average age was a bit older, and they didn't all have the NHL affiliations. So again, to me, it's not like I had these ambitions to make the show still. Like that was never the case. But when Mississippi signed me in the ECHL, that was kind of part of the deal, right? We were affiliated with the Lightning. I remember the coach even calling me in. He's like, man, like there's a good opportunity here. Like Tampa doesn't, they've struggled on some recent draft picks, like, at least maybe earn a call up this year to the American League. And they really kind of pumped my tires because, again, really good camp, right? Go in, flying around, and they're like, holy shit. But I'll mention this. They had heard the word had started to get around about what I like to do, right? They called me in. Hey, we want to have you on this team. You're one of the best defensemen in camp, but we're hearing about this party and stuff. Talk to us. What's going on? So of course I'm able to downplay it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean? Like bad situation in Oklahoma, coach didn't like me or whatever. I don't even remember what I said, but just you get good at downplaying, manipulating, whatever. So earned that spot. But that was the season. I call it the Coke season because it just, again, local connect right away and able to get away with it, do it all day, all night, sweat it out the next day at practice. That was that whole season, honestly. Yeah, quick story on that. Like there was one game. This is just how deep it got, man. Had a game in Florida, East Coast swing. Fort Myers was maybe 4 hours from Biloxi, Mississippi, where I was playing, and me and a teammate had been doing coke the whole night, the night before the game, not trying to take it into the next day, right? But how she goes sometimes,
Yeah, for sure.
And all of a sudden, it's getting close to having to leave for the away game, right? And we're still going, so ended up getting more, and it just kept progressing. Like, and it's not like it was planned. It just all of a sudden doing lines in the bathroom on the bus, doing lines in the dressing room at the game, like while we're getting ready. And in between periods, man. And again, that ego inflation, I remember this. Another crazy thing about this, my parents are down visiting, man, from Canada. They're on this road swing. They're traveling, like literally renting a car, following the bus, going to these road games. And I'm doing coke in the build up to the game, throughout the game. Again, put up 2 points, 2 assists. I don't recall details of the game, but obviously had an okay game, right? And I just remember crashing out on the bus after, but thinking to myself, like, yeah, I can do this, right? I'm invincible, or whatever the thinking was, right? And that's just one example of like how dark it got that season.
And at this point, do your parents recognize any of the behavior that's happening?
I was like, sorry to interrupt, but like you're doing cocaine before games, the night before.
Yeah.
Like no one, were you that good at hiding it?
I mean, I think it was just, yeah, it honestly, that season, like there was no one really called it out. And again, it was a lot of the guys were doing it as well. But yeah, I think I just like that guilty hockey that you and I have talked about before. Like I really took it to heart. And that's like, we had a hard-nosed coach and we like conditioned hard. And I just remember like, if I'd been up all night, it was like, I almost looked forward to like the bag or the conditioning run after, because I just knew I was going to sweat it out of my system and then could go nap afterwards and just kind of regroup, right? But I think that took its toll even today, right? Just how hard I was on my body in those years, you know what I mean? I think probably took a toll today. But back to what you asked earlier, like that was amidst that season, I broke my jaw, took a shot in the face, cracked my jaw in 2 places. Thankfully didn't have to get it wired shut, but liquid diet, 2 weeks, lost a bunch of weight. And that's when I got introduced to the painkiller family, right? That first prescription from a orthodontist or whatever doctor gave it to me, right? Because it was super freaking painful. And yeah, I'll never forget that first dose as prescribed, so to speak, right? Just, it was like physical pain instantly gone, but like everything else was gone too, right? I was just like floating, just laying there in bed and was just like, what is this? And it wasn't like I just started on the path to addiction with that right away, but that was, I'll never forget that feeling. And a couple years later, when I had another injury, was when I got into the stronger stuff, or exposed to the stronger stuff, and then started chasing that for the better part of a decade.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And so you're injured now. You're addicted to these pills. Obviously, there's team doctors, or is there team doctors at this point?
Oh,
yeah. Okay. So you've got team doctors. Are they you're getting around all this?
Yeah. So finished that season. That was the lone season I played in the ECHL. Went back to the CHL the following season for a 3-year stint in Rapid City, South Dakota. Like I said, won a title there my second year in 2010. And, but yeah, after that first season there, the year prior to winning the title, I blew my shoulder out, like, blew it out early on, had the MRI. They're like, yeah, we have to surgically repair it, but you can still play. You can't really hurt it more. So, but it was brutal. Like, played that whole season, like injured, couldn't lift my arm over my head, right? And yeah, as soon as that season was done, they booked in the surgery, and yeah, just got prescribed these stronger pain meds, right, that I'd never really messed with before, and pretty unlimited supply, especially coming off a major surgery like that, right? And they ask you, like, hey, can we take it down, a few milligrams or whatever, right? And I was like already, manipulative in that sense. Like, no,
You're an expert at lying at this point.
Need the strongest kind and probably more of them. And again, this is like 15 years ago, man. So it was before, like, they've always been harder to find in Canada, but US, man, it wasn't until the last 5-10 years that like they made it difficult to access this stuff, right? Like it was very easy to access before the government stepped in. But yeah, anyways, that was when it started, was kind of that second year in Rapid City, 2010, 2011, access to these types of drugs. To answer your question, yes, like manipulating doctors, because there was multiple team doctors, right? And I would just, kind of work my way through them to get multiple scripts when I needed them. And again, it wasn't difficult. It's like, hey, man, especially closer to the end of the year, we're about to go on a playoff run. Hey, I'm banged up. I need something. And again, I don't think it's like that today professionally, but I don't know for sure. But 15 years ago, it was that easy to obtain.
I'm assuming, G, that there had to been a down, like a no more for you getting these pills from team doctors. Obviously, with yourself, you got addicted to them. How did you end up getting them when you continued on your addiction? Obviously, the doctors, did they ever question? Obviously, they questioned you, and you're always putting up that mask and saying, obviously saying no. But how were you still feeding that addiction when it was done? Maybe you're like, the doctor said, no, that's enough, but you're being manipulated, like you said. But like, did you find drugs on the streets and that stuff? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's That's exactly what happened. You know, I mean, even with multiple scripts on the go, I mean, you know, they're month-long prescriptions and they're lasting 1 to 2 weeks tops, right? And so, yeah, turned to the street. And again, it was similar to connects in other cities for other substances. This stuff was accessible, and you know, I would sniff it out, and then now it becomes, you know, it's a pretty pricey habit, you know, for those type of substances, and I just that's what I started chasing, man. For that, you know, next season in Rapid, it wasn't quite a daily thing necessarily. It was more so just after games, you know, maybe on the bus on a longer road trip, you know, an overnight road trip or something. I wasn't doing them yet, like on game day or like leading up to a game. It was typically just after, and just the toll on your body. And like a lot of guys I played with were like this, but we would take like, you know, the legal stimulants as far as like the pre-workout stuff, you know, like 3-4 scoops of this shit to get revved up pre-game, and then getting into the opiates post-game to come down, and, you know, mixing that with alcohol. And it's just like, it can't be good for the psyche, right? Especially as consistent as I and others were doing it. So that's what a lot of that looked like. And yeah, it was just this slow progression for me, man, with the addiction stuff. I still had a few more years of being able to manage it, but eventually it started to burn down.
So when it burns down, you're still down there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got, after those 3 years in Rapid, I got traded to Tulsa, and
Tulsa.
yeah. So back in Oklahoma, right, the other major city of the state. I played those 2 seasons in Oklahoma City, so it kind of come full circle. The Oklahoma City team wasn't even there anymore, right? They ended up, you know, they had an American League team for a bit, the Oilers farm system, but it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same draw, so they ended up folding eventually. But yeah, Tulsa was, you know, great community, pretty good support, and you know, I remember we didn't have a good a successful hockey team, but those 2 years it was a great group of guys. I think it just kind of it ramped up those seasons. It turned into that daily thing pretty quickly. And again, I've shared this with you, Deej. Like I had there was this missing component in my life. Like the hockey wasn't filling the void anymore. And I think I was hoping the substances would, but like that wasn't either. So I started chasing these other external things, and, you know, family, you know, partnership, maybe children, material things. And so, yeah, that first season in Tulsa, like I met my oldest daughter's mother. We met, got pregnant, and got married in a 6-month window. Crazy, right? But I remember that was just like, I thought that's what I needed. You know, maybe that's gonna. I remember like in real time thinking like maybe that's gonna complete me or fill the void. Like it was really strange that I was just like chasing things I didn't even know, you know, were what I needed. Obviously, the chances of that dynamic working out long term were minimal when you're jumping into it that quick. But, you know, no regrets in that regard. Have a beautiful 13-year-old daughter today, amazing relationship with her mom, and you know, no regrets there. But it was very, very toxic in real time because this addiction has progressed to a new level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's pregnant that whole first season. You know, we have the baby at the start of the second season, and I'm using every day at this point, you know, hitting the streets for same deal as Rapid, right? Like doctor prescription, but running out even quicker now. Like the tolerance with that shit just builds so quickly, right? To where you just need more and more and more often to not even get high sometimes, but just not to be sick. Like the withdrawals I started experiencing too, right? That was a new thing. I'd never had withdrawals from drugs. Like I didn't know what that was, or from alcohol, right? I never drank to that extent where I'm withdrawing from something. But with that opiate family, it was a real thing, man. And, you know, as the darker it got, the more I would just have to use to just be okay. Forget high. It's just to freaking feel normal, right? Anyways, that marriage dissolved pretty quickly. You know, just I was reckless, unpredictable, whether I was in the midst of using or coming off of the shit or whatever it was, right? Don't hold anything against my oldest child's mother for leaving when she did, taking our daughter. You know, it was a safety thing for sure. At the time, I was resentful, right?
Mm-hmm.
How dare you break up our family? You know, fueled it. It fueled my addiction even more because, And amidst all this, the career essentially ends prematurely. Like I was 30 years old. At least obviously the next level aspirations had gone away, right? I knew I wasn't making even the American League, but potentially some European player, who knows, right? I that was one aspiration, was maybe try to get over there and play, a few more years in my 30s. But I had lost that step because of the using. And I always told myself early on in my career, when I lose, because you'd see guys who would push it, right? I play in the CHL. There was guys in their 40s, man.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what are you doing, man? And I always told myself, when I sense I've lost a step, I'm hanging them up. Unfortunately, I think it was a direct result of the addiction that I did lose that step.
sure.
But that was it. It was just like kind of that final season, not getting healthy scratched again, had some injuries, and then got healthy but couldn't get back in the lineup. And again, using every day to kind of not just deal with the physical pain, but just like, there was definitely some mental struggles at that point of like, holy shit, like what's going on here? I'm having to hide a lot of shit from, my partner and teammates and parents. And it was just like, it was pretty out of control, in all honesty, but chaotic, right? Like a week before my 30th birthday, and I was sitting alone in the condo. It was like, I'm done. They were trying to like maybe offer me like get you on the bench as an assistant coach. Like they wanted to try to help me, so it wasn't just this like direct hit, but that's what it was, man. And I was still together with my kid's mom at the time, and she was a Tulsa girl, so I started doing what a father thinks he should do, and get a real job and support my family, right? But pretty hard to sustain that when you're an opiate addict, right? Like
Every day,
full blown, man. Yeah, it wasn't. It was very short lived. Like 2 months after I retired, essentially, she was gone. My family was gone, and like courts were involved. I wasn't allowed to see my child unsupervised, and it was ugly. But as mentioned before, that fueled the addiction even more, because now I'm isolated, man. And about the isolation, how dark it can get, man. I'm isolated not only from the family I thought I deserved or had made, but all my other families back in Canada. Like, I'm still down there, and I don't have teammates. I don't really have a friend circle, and I don't have any family anymore.
Yeah.
This episode of After is proudly sponsored by the Mental Health Classic Hockey Tournament. This isn't just hockey, it's about bringing families, athletes, and communities together to start real conversations about mental health. It's about showing young athletes they're not alone and that it's okay to talk about whatever they are going through. Sign up your son or daughter for Saskatoon August 8th and 9th or Kindersley August 15th and 16th at mentalhealthclassic.ca. That's mentalhealthclassic.ca. Let's hit the ice, have fun, and make a real impact on and off the ice.
Your hockey's done.
Yeah.
Daughter's gone. Opiates still every day. This is obviously arguably the darkest time for you. Is there a rock bottom day or event?
Yeah, shit. Sorry, man. Getting a little emotional about it. Definitely. It was, as mentioned, kind of an 18-month progression in that isolation. Access to my child taken away by the system. Really just existing. I think, I tried to quit on my own a few times, to no avail. Could only get to 2 or 3 days, and just succumb to the withdrawals, or, just the inability to really know how to live life clean at that point, right? Because I'd been using for so long consecutively. Yeah, it was dark, man. But I hit a point where I knew I probably need to ask for help. Yeah, it's still a strong core memory of just an afternoon where I'd been using, and out of money, spiritually bankrupt, monetarily bankrupt, all of it, right? And I didn't know who else to call aside from my old man, and he was back in Canada, back in PA, and I'm 2,000 miles away, and I just called him and like broke down instantly. It was just like, Dad, like I need help. I can't quit on my own. I don't know what to do. And they knew, like the signs were there, right? Like I was, manipulating for money, and just, they told me after the fact just the way I would sound on the phone when I would call, right? Like they're your parents, and we had a close relationship my whole life. They were my biggest supporters through my hockey career and my life. So they knew, but obviously not to the extent.
They'd never called you out on it before or anything?
Not directly, no. Not directly. A couple times when I'd come home to visit, they would just just kind of, ask how I was doing. But again, you just get so good at like disguising and saying what people want to hear, right? Today that's impossible, because if I get loaded tomorrow, it's like everyone in my circle knows.
Yeah.
You know what my partner knows, and so that's not an option. Not just because of that, but you know what I mean? It was different then. I guess I just the progression.
You're doing it every day.
Yeah, and it was so yeah, that it was a hard phone call, man. But you know what? And again, we've talked about this, that relief right after. Even though I'm still like super emotionally charged and, under the influence and in this really dark spot, I just remember like, holy shit, I was able to like voice it to someone who I can trust, for one, and someone I know who has like stood by me for so long. So yeah, I was one of the lucky ones, in the sense of, my dad, again, I'm probably paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of like, your mom and I don't know how to help you, but we will. That was kind of how the conversation ended. He said, I'm gonna make some calls, and just, make sure you're safe. Made sure I was safe. And it was, I think that night or the next morning, they called me and had a couple treatment options, and they were willing to foot the bill and get me the help I needed. And that kind of started my my institution cycle, I call it, right? Because I was it took multiple attempts in these types of facilities to believe, I guess, that I could be in long-term recovery. So, but yeah, that was the bottom, man. To answer your question, that gas station parking lot, a place I had used countless times before, and was able to just pull in and make a phone call. And unfortunately enough, as supportive as my parents were, they ended up enabling me, and I recognize that today. Probably prolonged my willingness to get clean and sober. You know what I mean? There wasn't that hard love of like, hey dude, you're cut off, I was able to kind of work that for a lot more years amidst my relapses, etc. Right? And that's not their fault. That's on me, but I try to take accountability for that today and recognize that, and even guide maybe people who go through it. Hey, you gotta set some boundaries, right? Because we can't get clean or sober unless it's for us. You know what I mean? And it wasn't for me those first few times in treatment. It was for my kid, or for my parents, or for whoever else, right?
This is exactly why we're doing this podcast. I'm getting butterflies. It's we're proud of you, man. This has been absolutely awesome. I got one question I like asking every guest that comes on our podcast, because I think this is going to help out all the viewers out there and people that are going through it. What would something that now, G, now that you're sober, now you came out, you came out of your struggles and everything, if you could look back on 19-year-old Gio, what's something that you could, let's say you're staring at this kid, what's something that you would say to him from now that you're where you are now, sober, you put in the steps, you put in the work, and you could see that 19-year-old Gio struggling? What's something that you could say to him?
Yeah, well, that's a powerful question. I think a big part of it was, and we talked about this early on, just that lack of direction. Do you know what I mean? And mentorship, maybe. I know that wasn't, again, as popular 20 years ago, but just, hey man, like look up to someone, admire what they're doing, and try to emulate that, right? Because I was at the wheel, and my track record when I'm solo at the wheel hasn't been great. And so, I think that, along with look, man, you know you're a good person, you have potential, not just in hockey, but you're a leader. I had people tell me that early on, right? And I didn't know. You don't know necessarily your attributes as a teenager, but you're a leader, man. I had people come up and tell me that, right? Coaches, community people, whoever. Maybe just not taking that for granted and really like clinging on to that, man, and trying to like find that purpose, at a much younger age than, it took me to be in my 40s before I found my purpose now. It's doing what you and I love to do, help others ultimately, right? But yeah, because I was just so lost, man, so lost in those years, and just again doing what people told me to do, and just lacking that true sense of belonging and true purpose. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Beautiful.
That's what it would look like.
Loved every minute of that, man. Wow.
Whatever words you come up with answer the question. But would you say, like, I guess one of the biggest things is talking? I know, like, I asked you a couple times during your story, did you have anybody to talk to? And the answer was mostly no. Or if you had an opportunity to talk to someone, the answer was mostly no. And it seemed like reaching out, talking saved your life. And now talking to the close-knit people continues to do that. Would you tell that 19-year-old, talk to somebody that you trust?
Yeah, definitely. And like, I don't know, man. I can only recall like one instance of it being, I think it was like top 40 back in the day, right? But we were much younger then. But there was a sports psychologist there, right? And I, like, honestly, through my whole career, I think that was the one opportunity. Again, this is now 25 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But someone we had the opportunity to talk to, and it was a circle of trust, right? It was one-on-one, but beyond that, it wasn't an accessible thing. And so, yes, I would tell my 19-year-old self that, but I don't know if it would make sense to him. But today, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's so much more accessible for these youth. Do you know what I mean? And if you're listening to this and don't know that, please. And I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure it's for you as well. Like, if you're struggling, you know how to reach us, reach out, man. And if we can't directly help you, we sure as hell can try to point you in the right direction, right, man? And in turn, that helps us, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it's about, man. And I just think, yeah, it's still hard. I coach, right? I coach U15. This is my, inaugural season doing it. And I see it. These kids, a lot of them are, not all of them, but most are, there's pent up stuff there, right? There's still a stigma. I don't want to necessarily be soft or come across as soft. And I mean, even look at the Allmark situation in the show, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
It's wild.
So
The stigma. But man, from myself and Jared, thank you. I know somebody listening to this episode is going to benefit off this. I know it helped me. It inspires me. I know Jared, same way, man. We're proud of you. This is what it's all about, is speaking your truth and using your past to help people now. If people want to get a hold of you, G, how would they get a hold of you?
yeah, so I'm really only on the two platforms. Like, I go by my full name on Facebook, Giovanni Flamminio, and then G Flamminio on Instagram, which again, a little more active on there. But yeah, and again, struggling, I'm on there daily, so just reach out, and I'm happy to provide my phone number if you're more comfortable doing that once we connect on there. But yeah, I'm never gonna ghost someone who's seeking any type of help, right? So yeah, that's how to reach me. And yeah, I'm kind of at a new juncture here, man, with trying to build something to where I can do this stuff more regularly, as far as just carrying a message of hope to others, and purposefully that's what I think I'm here to do, man. So I'm here for it.
I love that, man. Thank you guys so much for listening to our first episode of After Away from the Rink podcast. Super thankful to have Giovanni Flamminio on. I'm sure we'll put his socials on our description on our video there, just so kids have the access to reach out to you, and parents, and strongly do. Jared, do you have anything else to say, my brother?
Yeah, I mean, same as Gio. If you're struggling with anything and you don't want to reach out to somebody individually or you want to stay anonymous, like send an email to after AFTR podcast official at gmail.com. There's no judgment anywhere in here. We might not be able to help in your current situation, but we will damn well try and find you the resources. So yeah, reach out there, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Right on, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, the After Podcast, baby.